Australian Hall of Fame. Firstly, how did you initially find out?
From a phone call. So I was at the races at Randwick on a Saturday and got the phone call, had a tap on my shoulder by one Ray Thomas of all people, and it was put on to the man himself who told me the news that I'd be inducted into the Hall of Fame, and it was a pretty special moment. I'd just been inducted into the New Zealand Hall of Fame, which obviously I'm very honoured to be in, especially being from New Zealand, but knowing that my work has basically been done in Australia and to be noticed in Australia where that work's been done, I think it was very, very special and emotional, and it took my eye off the ball on the actual race day itself, just thinking about it and knowing so well what it means to so many people that are already in there and the people that will be in there behind me.
Your family, when you told them that you were inducted into the Australian Hall of Fame, how did they respond? I'm sure they're incredibly proud of you, but to be recognised is something amazing. Yeah,
I guess they're very proud. It's not something we discuss. I don't need a pat on the back or things like that, but I guess it's not something you spruik either. So I obviously told them, and they'd be very proud behind the scenes, as they are, as every parent is with whatever their sons or daughters are involved in. And I'm lucky to be in a sport which is noticed, not by a vast population, but obviously a good part of the sporting population. So yeah, no doubt they're very proud.
You're alongside some legends in the Australian Racing Hall of Fame. You've always spoken about Bart Cummings as being someone you've followed and admired. It must be pretty special to be able to be alongside him. Yeah,
very much so. I'm not getting myself up to that level yet, but to be in awe of those great people that have been before me in Sydney in particular, which I'm obviously very close to, and I was lucky enough to see Bart Cummings at his best, the tail end of Tommy Smith. Heard many stories about your Hayses and all those great trainers and the years the trainers gone by, and then the common heroes of your Hawkses, your Waterhouse, David Hayes, just a small few names that are of a modern era, the Freedmans. So to be in that Hall of Fame is something special, but we won't lose sight of things, of reality. They've certainly done a lot more than me, but who knows, I might be able to catch up one day.
How does being inducted compare to training Winks? I mean, they're both very honourable things to do, and it's certainly something that's got to be well up there in your training career.
I was very proud when Winks was inducted into the Hall of Fame last year, and it's only fitting that she's now got a trainer, because I'm sure Tommy Smith, for one, would be saying, I'll train Winks while she's in here. But it's just so special. How does it rate? It's as good as it gets. Doesn't get any better than that. It's the one thing that I guess it just caps everything off. Premierships or big races that you win are very, very special and mean a lot at different times of your life or career. But to be inducted into the Hall of Fame, it's the best.
Going back to when you first started your training career, first ever came over to Australia, did you ever imagine, I know you're very ambitious, but did you ever imagine that you would end up in this position that you're in?
Perhaps the Hall, but it might have been the Salvation Army, not the Hall of Fame. So, no, I didn't. And I started out my career just wanting to be recognised and no great expectations or things that I wanted to achieve, but just get some respect. There's so many people in the racing industry that work tirelessly, and many of my staff are good examples that work behind the scenes to help promote me to where I am. But to get respect, whether you are a strapper, a track rider, is probably just as important as getting the ultimate respect that I'm getting with this award. So I think let's not lose sight of the many people that don't go or that go through life unrecognised, yet they're working so hard. Yeah, I've been recognised, and that's what I set out to achieve, but again, won't get too carried away with it.
Chris, Sydney racing 20 years ago, why Sydney?
It was at a stage in New Zealand where things weren't going that well, not just myself personally or financially, but there was a northward trend towards the upper half of the North Island, so it was pretty much vacate where I was, which is the central districts of New Zealand, to move up north. And I thought it would be just as hard moving there and getting myself established there as possibly Australia. So I didn't have any ties as such. I was had no major commitment. So obviously having a supporting wife in Stephanie, who's been there every step of the way, has been important. And we're at the age of our life where we went. We didn't have children, so we set off on a journey and chose Sydney, seeing it as a very professional place. It's something that's portrayed to other parts of the world, in particular New Zealand, when I was growing up, as the place to be. Yes, Melbourne has the Melbourne Cup, everyone's aware of that, but the Sydney racing, week in, week out, sold itself to me, as it does to a lot of people, a lot of punters, jockeys, and just general racing people. So we chose Sydney, and it's now home, and it's something we're very proud to call home, and it wouldn't be anywhere else in the world.
Those first few years, Chris, they were tough. I went back, had a look at the records, and there was a season that he had 4 winners and 5 winners. Was Chris Waller doubting himself at all?
They were good seasons.
Was there any doubts then, Chris? Yeah.
Not really. When you're young, and I guess it would have been 23 or 24, you don't really look at the bank account, and unless you're really, really struggling, and I guess that was part of it. But making sure you're paying the bills was the main goal. Doing the right thing, and just slowly making progress. And the beauty of Australia was young people, I think, did get noticed. The Australians were willing to give young people the opportunity, and I'm very grateful for that, right from the first days through till now. And through having that opportunity, momentum grows. So the stable was gradually getting bigger from, say, 6 horses all the way through to 20, then 20 to 30, 30 to 40, and then momentum really started to springboard my success. And as a result, each year, to me, looking back, was an improvement right up until now.
After that first 8 or 9 years came 2008 and that breakthrough Group 1 with Triple Honour. What did that moment sort of mean to you, and can you believe the 10 years since? It's almost 80 Group 1s in those subsequent years since Triple Honour.
Well, taking it back 6 months, it was 2007 when equine influenza hit Sydney racing, Australian racing, and I just got on an upward spiral and was starting to promote or get amongst the premiership leaders, maybe the top 4 or 5 from memory. And to that stage I thought, well, everything might just be a fluke. Racing stopped. I've had, say, 40 winners in town, and all of a sudden there's no racing. How am I going to get started? Am I going to be able to afford to pay my staff? And fortunately, through some really good administration from Peter Volandis at the time, as well as the racing clubs, and he got actively involved. Peter got involved with McGorrin and the local government as well, and it was the government and John Howard and Peter McGorrin that actually got right behind it and saved the industry and myself. So racing started back. We all thought, oh gee, how are we going to get going? And as it worked out, 3 months later, Triple Honours won a Group 1 race, and to me, that was, I guess, the turning point and the confidence level in myself to know that it was just a matter of doing things properly, and when the right horses came along, they were good enough to win these elite races. So I think, how do you explain it? It's just that inner feeling, inner thoughts to say, gee, I'm good enough to compete at this level. I'm not going to change anything. I don't have to worry about anybody else, just worry about what's in front of me. And things went from one level to another again.
Self-belief.
Self-belief.
Obviously, Winx has been a highlight. You trained some great horses in the last decade particularly, but Winx, what sort of impact she's had on your life and indeed on Australian racing? She's taken my career in racing to a whole new level. I, like most people, are racing tragic, and 3 years ago, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, 7 years ago, 8 years ago, 9 years ago, 10 years ago, 11 years ago, 12 years ago, 13 years ago, 14 years ago, 15 years ago, 16 years ago, 17 years ago, 18 years ago, 19 years ago, 20 years ago, 21 years ago, 22 years ago, 23 years ago, 24 years ago, 25 years ago, 26 years ago, 27 years ago, 28 years ago, 29 years ago, 30 years ago, 31 years ago, 32 years ago, 33 years ago, 34 years ago, 35 years ago, 36 years ago, 37 years ago, 38 years ago, 39 years ago, 40 years ago, 41 years ago, 42 years ago, 43 years ago, 44 years ago, 45 years ago, 46 years ago, 47 years
live for my racing every week of the year and in awe of the great champions of the past and as they're happening now. So to get a horse like Winx, I sort of more see it as what she's doing for racing and the importance of that, the importance of her fans. So we take it more as a responsibility than an enjoyment side of Winx. So I get up in the morning saying, okay, what am I going to do with Winx today to make sure that she's safe, to make sure that she's continuing on with her legendary status, and not to disappoint and not to confuse anybody, and hence a reason why so many decisions have been made about longevity in her life. So I guess one, I'm very proud, and two, to know that you've been associated, again, whether you're the strapper of Winx, the track rider of Winx, the rider, the breeders, everybody has had a little piece of Winx, and I'm one of those pieces, and it's been an amazing journey.
Chris, we all know you as a humble man, so you probably won't like to answer this question, but do you look back at what you've achieved, and particularly the records now, because you are rewriting Sydney and Australian racing history?
Not really. And it's something that I used to get extremely emotional about, but didn't like talking about it. But obviously it's been going for a while now, and just very proud, more than looking at anything. As I've said so many times, things change with technology in terms of how you're able to train a big stable of horses. So I've got a system that I've got set up that helps me do that, and there's not many people in Australian racing that could do that. So through being in that position of having a big stable of horses, some really good owners and great staff, good jockeys, it happens, Ray. And we won't get too carried away in what the records say, but be proud of each and every race. And I think if I can continue doing that, I'll be doing it for a lot longer as well.
Well, just finally, Chris, what does the next 10 years and beyond hold for Chris Waller?
Pretty much the same. Obviously, families first and foremost. Make sure that they're not being forgotten in this career, because you could easily work tirelessly with getting constant winners and Group 1 winners. It just puts you on such a high, but you've got to realise that the family's there as well. They're growing, they're getting older, so that's probably the number one priority. It is the number one priority. And obviously just take a 10% step back if I can from racing and give it to the family. I think that'll be the next big achievement, and probably a noticeable achievement, but one worth plenty of satisfaction at the end of the day.
That's great.